Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been forever and I quite frankly have just been working, so that has taken up a significant portion of my time. But I'm really excited today. I have a story that I've been working on since September. I know, ridiculous. But I really wanted it to be thoughtfully put together. I had a great conversation with an entrepreneurial young woman who I've known since high school. We went to the same, actually, it's a elementary through high school, private school, and she and her sisters all attended, like my younger sister and I, and I just admire how she has evolved over the years into a micro influencer, as she calls herself. So we had a great conversation about body positivity, eating disorders, and just being a more confident woman, more confident Black woman. And so I'm really, like I said, I'm really excited to share this with you all. And please like and comment and subscribe. And without further ado, here is McKenzie Barnes. Okay, so how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just, trying to adjust to everything that's going on in the world right now. Trying to expand on like everything charcuterie by Kenzie. And then I actually just got hired at a restaurant. I'm taking like a few shifts because I've been unemployed since March. It's exciting. It's the same Hillstone, the same restaurant that I used to work at. It'll be nice to have a little bit of a routine.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask actually. Like, what do you do? What is your career path?
A little bit of everything. Before the pandemic, I was working as a coordinator for a private kitchen. And then, other than that, I own a swimsuit company with my sister and her husband, 10 Swim. I do freelance writing on top of like the stuff that I write for my blog. I do charcuterie boards. Right now, I'm doing to go for the New York area. So, if anyone needs one, let me know. I do content creation. So, I've had a few partnerships this year, including with American Eagle, Pearl Street Caviar, and Nord Green Watches. I've been doing a few paid partnerships over the last couple of months with them.
How did you get into doing all of this?
Kind of accidentally. I've always been a really creative person. I love fashion. I love just writing and stuff in general. And Instagram was kind of an outlet for me starting in high school. And then when I moved to New York, I started gaining more traction. Obviously, like my network expanded and everything. I kind of realized people like what I have to say, what I have to wear. And so I started dedicating myself a little bit more to it and being a little bit more purposeful with my content, aesthetic, and everything over the last year or so. I've started getting partnerships. Like last year, I did a lot of unpaid ones, like in exchange for product. And this year, I've been doing a little bit more research and like seminars on pitching to brands and like learning how to actually monetize it. So that's my goal for 2021 is like basically be able to live off of mostly this like full time at this and doing my charcuterie by Kenzie.
How would you describe your aesthetic?
Classic slash girly, but like with a little bit of an edge. So I love pleated midi skirts, but I also love to like wear form-fitting things that are like very feminine and sexy. I like having cleavage. I like to have fun with things. I like to experiment as much as possible. I know what works for my body, and I think I've had like a pretty consistent style since I was in middle school, honestly. I like grew up right when Gossip Girl was big, and I think I like take a lot of my cues from that, and also obviously from like where we went to school. Like we always had our uniform, but like even when I was in our uniform, I always tried to make it like the most me it could be. So I'd wear like thigh-high socks, and I was like the only person at our school that owned the school blazer and like got it tailored. Loved like the headbands. I'm a big accessories person. I love like big earrings, big headbands, whatever I can do. I like try to do the most, I guess.
Gossip Girl. Okay, now it makes sense. So you mentioned knowing what's right for your body. How did you get to figuring that out?
So it's definitely been a process. I started developing definitely earlier than most girls. Like I got my first like cup bra when I was like 10 years old. I was in fourth grade, and I remember being like petrified because everyone else was completely flat chested, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening to me? Like, I don't want these and everything. And so basically starting from then and like all through middle school and high school, my body developed. I always had like big hips and big thighs. And by the time I was like 13 years old, I had D boobs and it was just a lot, but I also fluctuated in weight a lot. So I just go up and down. And so I kind of had to figure out very quickly, like what works for me when I'm bigger, when I'm smaller. It was a lot of trial and error. And when I was in middle school, obviously, like, you know, most of us have pressure from like everyone else. You have to be trendy. You have to do this and that. And I realized very quickly that like the stuff that most girls that I was friends with would wear didn't look right on me. So I kind of was forced to figure out like, what can I wear to basically like, still like fit in, but look cute.
And what were girls trying to look like? What was the trend back then?
We went to school with mostly white girls, and there are all these like stick thin size 2 flat chested girls that would wear like cutoff shorts and crop tops and all the stuff that would look cute on them. But for me, it was one, just like inappropriate for like a 12-year-old. But also like I had the body of a woman, so it was just like a lot.
You have an older brother, an older sister, and a younger sister. Were they folks that you could relate to during that time period as opposed to your peers?
I think my older sister and I definitely have similar-ish, like she always had bigger thighs too and fuller chest. And my younger sister, she was super skinny. She also had boobs. So we all kind of struggled with that. I think that that's definitely something that like brought us closer together through like our adolescence. And we knew that our body shapes were different from our peers. But in terms of style, I think that my sisters always played it safe. You know, they were just t-shirts and jeans kind of people, and still very much so are for the most part. I probably struggled the most because I always wanted to like express myself and be like, you know, be out there. I wanted to dress like really fun and funky. It was hard for me to find a way to do that was appropriate for middle school, high schooler, but also still like expressing myself.
Your family is in the party, restaurant, club scene. So did that have any effect on you growing up in terms of body image?
Definitely. I started working at Park when I was probably like 16, 17, just like during dinner hours. And then once I turned 18 and like up until I moved to New York, I would work on weekends. I definitely had like a skewed image of like what a woman was supposed to look like what I was supposed to look like. You know, there's all these girls that are in vampy dresses and like super tiny, workout all the time and overly done makeup, over like their hair is perfect. That was what I aspired to. And I didn't realize that like you can still be beautiful and sexy and an interesting person without having to like do everything up all the time, which I do still enjoy, obviously doing makeup. I love getting dressed up. I love feeling sexy in my clothes, but that's not my number one priority 100% of the time. And there's a balance that definitely needs to be struck there that I didn't have when I was growing up. A lot of the male figures in my life, whether it was consciously or subconsciously, kind of told me like, that's what you have to do to get a boyfriend or a man or whatever. You have to look a certain way. Guys don't like the big girl. If you're walking through the club, obviously like all these girls that are, you know, have 23-inch waists and big boobs and all this stuff are getting all the attention. And like you see those cues from people, whether they're saying it or not. I think that definitely messed with my head. I think all of us struggle with, regardless of how confident we are. We have our moments. Remind yourself the presence of someone else's beauty doesn't like mean the absence of your own.
I've followed along with you on social media, and you've been pretty open with overcoming an eating disorder. So when did that start?
When I was around 11, 12 years old is when I started restricting, over-exercising, things like that. Doctors were probably like the first people that told me that I was overweight, bordering on being overweight, like needed to add more exercise and stuff like that. And I think my parents, because of a lack of knowledge and awareness and all the developments that have come over the last like decade or so about body fat percentages and BMIs and things like that, that there was so much misinformation then that, you know, my parents kind of they were supposed to believe the doctors and that was what it was. And so my parents put a lot of pressure on me to make sure that I was being healthy and things like that, and totally switching my diet and exercise regime and everything to the point where I took it to like an extreme. It probably got to the worst point when I was in high school. Sophomore to senior year was like a lot of up and down, and I've dealt with anorexia, bulimia, and like binging and purging. And so, and having all three of those is like a really weird combination, especially because I think a lot of people associate eating disorders with like being able to see, like when you think anorexic, you think of a girl girl that's like literally just like skin and bones. And that's one, just like inaccurate in terms of anorexia in general. Disorders can look like whatever, any kind of body type. I would lose 20 pounds and then gain 25 pounds back and go up and down and all this stuff. And it was because I was dealing with a combination of all of them, and it would be at different times dealing with different kind of stress. It's how I would cope. A lot of it was also normalized in our society, but also within my friend group, within our school. I think back now, and I've talked to people since high school and I've had people reach out to me because I'm so open about it on Instagram. And they're like, thank you so much. Like, I was dealing with the same thing, or I'm still dealing with the same thing. I think a lot of it's because we don't talk about those things. I remember when I actually had a friend in high school, she told basically our whole friend group, I'm dealing with anorexia, I'm starting to go to therapy for it and all this stuff. And I remember her telling me that, and I felt so ashamed, but it was weird. It was like, I didn't want to steal her thunder and be like, I'm dealing with this too. So I just kind of like kept it to myself. And I think that that's so unhealthy. And I think especially as teenage girls, we need to like encourage people to talk about these things and just like to communicate with your friends, be open. If your family is like not there for you, talk to your friends, talk to someone, because more than likely there are other people going through it too, and you shouldn't have to suffer alone. Everyone deals with body issues in some way or another, especially in the age of social media. I think that the more we talk about it, the more demystified it'll be. Talking about body image and talking about loving our bodies, it's okay to be happy with your body. And I think that so much of it is us comparing ourselves to, whether it's our friends or celebrities or whatever. What I've learned is like everyone, regardless of how skinny you are, how big you are, has that like subconscious little voice like you're not good enough, and like the person that you might envy might be envious of you. And then you realize like, oh, we're both being dumb, like we're both beautiful, we're both perfect the way we are, like we are what we're meant to be.
So I was not in high school or college when Instagram took off. So would you say that social media has kind of exacerbated all of these negative influences of body image?
Yes, but also I think that it's also been like a really big catalyst for change as well. I got an Instagram, I'm trying to think, my sophomore year of high school, before influencers were really a thing. I hyper focused on following Fitspo Instagrams. I think as a 17-year-old girl, following people like that, there were so many of them that I felt like all like the first influencers I followed were all either like fitness Instagrammers or these super skinny bloggers, and people were still like on the juice cleanse kind of thing and things like that, and that were just not healthy at all, especially for someone who's still developing. That definitely like put more pressure on me. But as Instagram has gotten bigger and as more people speak out about their vulnerabilities and issues and diseases and things like that, I think it's become a really safe space for me. I've unfollowed anyone who makes me feel bad about my body, as I think everyone should. I've found people like Iskra Lawrence and Mia Kang and Ashley Graham and all these women that have fuller, beautiful bodies. And a lot of them have gone through the same issues that I have and found ways to cope with them or recover. They're very actively speaking out against the systems that have created this mass body dysmorphia. I don't think I would be where I am if Instagram didn't exist, because I don't think I would be able to like connect with people and like see the positive things, see where my life could be if I just stopped hating myself. And I'm so glad I did, because it's so much better and I'm so much happier. For example, I actually posted something on my Instagram story yesterday that was like, you know, when you look back on your pictures from years ago and you think, how did I hate my body then? You'll realize that it was never about your body. It was all in your mind. And I think that that's really powerful, and being able to connect with thousands or millions of people through your messages on Instagram is like so important.
Have you heard of other Black girls who have struggled with eating disorders? Because I don't see that as prevalently as I do with white girls often.
Yes, and that's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, because I've always thought it's such a hush-hush thing, or it just doesn't really exist within our community. I think our community has like a really weird way of talking about weight, a really negative way of talking about weight. It can be trivialized in a lot of ways, whether it's you're too skinny, your aunt is at Thanksgiving and you're too skinny and she's trying to force food down your throat, or someone greets you and is like, oh, you got a little thick or something or whatever. Like, you we talk about it in a joking way, but it can be actually really negative. There's actually like a pretty high rate, I want to say like 4% of Black adolescent women actually report having struggled with eating disorders, which is a lot higher than a lot of people would think. It does exist. We just don't talk about it. The Black community has a really hard time talking about mental health issues, and eating disorders are a mental health issue. But in terms of like, do I know anyone else? Yeah, I think that both of my sisters have struggled either with eating disorders or disordered eating in some capacity. I do know a couple of my other friends that have, but it's something that whether they've explicitly said it to me or I've just witnessed it, it's very much so something that like still we don't really talk about that much. I think it's really hard because of the way that a lot of us were brought up and the way that parents still talk about these things. Even though my parents are getting to the point where they're starting to understand a little bit more, it's still really a hard conversation to have with them. You don't have to like reconcile with your parents or whoever in order to heal from these things or recover, but it definitely makes it easier when you feel like you're understood by your family. A lot of the Black girls that I know that suffer with eating disorders are not, so it definitely makes it harder.
Yeah, and I think another aspect that kind of adds to the confusion is those comments, like you mentioned, from your relatives at holidays. It's masked as love. You're like, wait a minute, like...
Right, like, what do my thighs have to do with, you haven't seen me in 2 years?
Right, exactly. I was looking up some stats before this, and it was saying that even doctors don't notice when there's a disorder, specifically for their Black patients, but it's stereotypically, it's been like the white girl's disorder. Yeah. So they'll say, they'll offer more treatment.
Even when I started like trying to talk about it, probably like towards the end of my high school career, like right before I moved to New York, like that's like a rich white girl disease. Like anything, anorexia, anxiety, depression, which like I've struggled with all of them. Like people are like, that's like a rich girl disease. Like that's like, stupid. Like why do you feel that way? Kind of like just stop. Like, and I'm like, that doesn't help at all. Like no, it's a very legitimate disease. And I think that a lot of people in the Black community don't understand that. And I'm really glad, I think over the last few months, especially, there's been such a huge expansion of like resources, like mental health resources for Black people between the pandemic and all the race and political stuff that's going on. I've seen a big push for taking care of Black people's mental health, but I think we still have a really long way to go.
Did also going to a religious school have any impact as well? Speaking of Black community and mental health, because, let's pray about it.
At school, it was interesting in terms of how I viewed my body, like sexually, was more like how it influenced me. Obviously, we went to a Catholic school. There's a lot of shame around sex and sexuality, exploring your body, and even just how we were policed in terms of our uniforms. Regardless, it shouldn't even matter even if it was a co-ed school, but like we go to an all-girls school. Why does it matter if my skirt is more than a Coke can above my knee? And I definitely took a lot of issue with in high school and very much so fought back against. I don't know if you know this, I co-founded like the feminism club at our school my junior year, I believe. And it was really interesting. It was like the first thing the administration said to us was like, you can't discuss pro-choice things, which is like insane. We did it anyway. But it was like, okay, that's the one thing you think of when you think of feminism. Like, how about like just empowering women at an all girls? Like, what? Like, it was just crazy. Even just starting that club, they realized like, this is why this is wrong. Like, this is why these rules are sexist. This is why like these are biased towards certain people. Like, even the fact that, I got in trouble for wearing leggings on a free dress day when, someone who's 5'2" and wears a size 00, they could just walk by and it didn't matter. Like, I still keep in touch with some of the teachers, and like Miss Montanoni, she's the head of the upper school now. They would very, very obviously police the girls with curvier bodies more. For the most part, the girls with curvier bodies end up being the Black girls, which I'm like, that's something that you should definitely talk to the teachers about. And she was like, I completely agree. She's like, it's something that I've caught myself doing. Hopefully, knock on wood, they're working to do better on those kinds of issues. That was definitely something I noticed. You have to be modest. Who are you really telling to be modest? It's like only the girls that are developed, whatever that means. That put a little chip on my shoulder. It didn't affect me in the way of, I need to be skinnier. It's like, screw you. Like, this is my body shape. You can't tell me like, because I have bigger boobs that I can't wear a V-neck or I can't wear this or that or whatever. And I think that that's when I kind of started to gain confidence. Definitely affected me in some way.
What was the turning point moment for you with your eating disorder?
So when I moved to New York, I think just being in like a completely new city, completely new environment, I had autonomy for the first time in my life. I was able to do whatever I want, wherever I wanted. I also met such a diverse group of people. My graduating class was 79 people at Sinridge, and Baruch, the school that I went to up here, is 15,000 undergrads, and 98% of them live in the city. I was part of the 2% that lived in our dorms. I came up here 2 weeks before classes actually started and did this like pre-orientation program. And the kids that I met were all over. Some of them had never left New York. Some of them are these Long Island kids with a ton of money. Some of them live, in the projects in Brooklyn. And it was just such a mix of people. That was kind of like the moment where I was like, it doesn't matter like what we look like. We all look completely different. It was definitely obviously the most diverse racially, ethnically setting that I had ever been in. No one was concerned with their looks. Obviously everyone has their own style and things like that, but it wasn't this obsessive nature of being a teenage girl in an upper middle class neighborhood where everyone is so concerned about their aesthetic and being cool and whatever. And they were all just like, I am who I am, take it or leave it. So I was working full time, in school full time, started working on 10 Swim around the same time, going out and partying and doing the things that a normal 18-year-old does. I had so much going on that I basically like forgot. I was so preoccupied with other things that are obviously so much more important. When I took a step back and was like, oh, I've like put on some weight or whatever, I was like, this actually feels better. I genuinely just didn't have the energy to concern myself with those kinds of things anymore. Obviously, there were ups and downs, and I would go through times if I was really stressed where I'd revert back to those tendencies. Being around a more diverse group of people slowly over time, I was kind of like, oh, like this doesn't matter. And I also met girls that were in a much worse place than I was in terms of eating disorders. I met one of my best friends who had to go to like inpatient treatment. One of my other friends also like had to do like a year inpatient treatment. I think I saw that. I was kind of like, wow, that is where I could end up, and I don't ever want to be there. When I was in high school, my parents were really strict. We weren't allowed to date or anything like that. And so I started dating when I went to college, and I realized obviously some guys like you for your body and things like that. But I also met people that liked me because I was an interesting, cool person. They weren't just focused on my body. I always had operated under the impression that men really only care about what you look like, which is so messed up because I was very smart and bright and such a powerful student. Yeah, I was fun and whatever and things like that, but I think I definitely kind of like toned it down a little bit in front of men first, and then I realized I didn't have to do that. But definitely within my first year in New York was when I was like, okay, this is bullshit. There's no reason for me to be living like a half life. I shouldn't be having to hold myself back in any way, whether that's restricting food or restricting how I act in front of people. It just doesn't matter. I'm going to be a lot happier if I don't do that. Even though I'm like recovered, I just recently started therapy because one, I think everyone should do therapy. And it's something that my sister has tried to get me to do for years, just to deal with everything in life, regardless of your mental health status. It's just good to like get things off your chest. For example, like my junior year of high school is when I was definitely like in the depths of bulimia, and it went from I purged one time after a meal to like I started doing it every other day and then every day, and then I started bringing a toothbrush to school because I would purge after lunch. And it's one of those things that like when you're in it, you don't realize how bad it is. You normalize it, you rationalize it to yourself, and then once you're past it, once you've recovered, you realize like how bad it was.
Can you explain the difference between eating disorder and disordered eating?
An eating disorder is a continuous pattern, semi-conscious effort to either restrict. It's like a prolonged pattern, whereas in terms of disordered eating, you might say, I can only have carbs on these days, or since I'm going out this weekend, I'm going to be eating cake at a birthday party or something, like I'm going to work out these days, or having to earn your food. I don't know. It's really hard to explain. I used to do like the ABC diet. You would go 700 calories a day, 600 calories a day, 500, 400, 300, 100 fast, and then start over. It was like going around on Tumblr. Tumblr is also, it's gotten a lot better over the last few years, but that was definitely something that I know from myself and other friends that had eating disorders in high school that definitely fueled it. There was like pro Anna and pro Mia, like pro anorexia, pro bulimia Tumblr groups. It was really, really crazy. That was a conscious effort on my part that came from like subconscious thoughts, and it was like a full-on psychological disorder, whereas I think disordered eating comes from a lot of dieting messaging from our media and cultural things that are just like so subconscious, like you just don't even think about it.
How would you define body positivity?
I would define body positivity as Oh, this is a good one. I've never like thought about like actually defining it, but I think that loving your body, nurturing your body, regardless of how you actually feel in that instant. But my friend and I were talking recently, and we were talking about recovery and helping actually one of our friends through her recovery. And we were trying to figure out the best way to explain to her what recovery looks like for everyone, how it's different for everyone, because they see people that have come out of it and they see things about body positivity and they believe that that means that like they think that they are beautiful 100% of the time. I think a lot of people think that the way I talk on Instagram, and I try to be as real about it as possible, but they think that I just think I wake up every morning and I'm like, wow, my body is just, I'm perfect. My body is beautiful. It is flawless. No. If I have too much gluten or dairy, like I wake up super bloated. I feel groggy and gross, but I look at my stomach and I'm like, oh, like this is not necessarily what I ideally want to look like all the time. Everyone has those negative thoughts every once in a while, but the difference with body positivity is not letting it affect like your whole day and not letting it affect how you view yourself as a person. Your body is beautiful regardless, again, like of these momentary negative thoughts. This is the only body you have. You either are going to treat it right or you're not. And you're either going to live your life fully or you're not. It's not about your body, it's about your mindset. Body positivity is seeing the bigger picture of why we're here and what our bodies can do and what they have done for us up until this point. It could be worse, and like, you know, you could be, you know, so many other things, and the blessing of like having a body and like being able to express yourself through that body, whether it's through movement or creating things or through fashion or just speaking. It's so beautiful and it's genuinely a miracle. And you wouldn't want to treat your home badly, and like your body is your home.
So would you consider yourself a body positive advocate?
I definitely consider myself like a body positivity activist. I hope that I'm helping girls like me that were so lost and insecure, and people have always thought that I'm a very confident person. I think I was very much so taught from a young age to fake it till you make it. I've always been an outgoing person, and I think that I'm also like a very people-pleasing person, which is a good and a bad thing, but I definitely like have always tried to make others feel good about themselves even when I don't. And now that I really do have that confidence, I want to push even harder, and I want to be able to save girls like me that were insecure and like feel the need to help others before themselves and like help them put themselves first, nurture their talents, and also obviously nurture their bodies rather than focusing on what they should look like. And also just dispelling the narrative that there is a should anyway. Yeah.
I remember seeing a post that you put on Instagram about like quarantine weight, and there was someone who left a comment. You like totally checked them in like the nicest way possible. But could you describe that in better detail than I just did?
So here's the thing. Obviously, men deal with body dysmorphia, but it's definitely more prevalent in women, and it's definitely more of a systemic issue with women. There's all this toxic masculinity and things like that, but obviously most of my posts speaking about body positivity are geared towards women, and cis hetero men jump on and try to put their 2 cents in. What happened with this one was essentially he said, oh, don't worry, like you'll lose the weight when you really want to. We're here to support you through that. And the whole point of the body positivity movement is that you don't have to lose any kind of weight. If you can lose weight if you want to, you cannot, you can gain weight, you can do whatever. Like the whole point of the movement is that we have autonomy over our bodies. That comment really bothered me, and it wasn't because he completely missed the point of the whole post, which was like, what's going on in the world is greater than what your body looks like at this moment, and what's going on in your life and taking care of your mental health is way more important than what your body looks like at this moment. I essentially just kind of responded like, I don't want to, or not that I don't want to, like I go through a lot of my own things with my body, and I think that it's totally fine if you want to lose weight as long as you're doing it in a healthy way. That's something that a lot of people don't understand about the body positivity movement. It's also like about being healthy, like being the healthiest version of you, just not in like the toxic, like healthy way that most people think of health. But I essentially just responded and I was like, I don't need to lose the weight ever. That was not the point of this post. You need to read up more on this. No woman needs to do anything for you, for the world, for nothing. Like this is not a way to show support. This is not helpful. And it's really interesting because that's the first time I've like really had someone also like snap back at me in a really negative way. He said I had a shit attitude. He was just trying to help, and I was not the person that he thought I was, and that my message was bullshit because I responded negatively to him, which I think says so much also about what we're trying to achieve with the movement and with feminism. And women's liberation, everything, and it's so frustrating because like the second you assert yourself, like I didn't curse at him, I didn't say anything out of pocket, but the second a woman asserts herself, it's like whoa, like calm down, I wasn't trying to. I'm like, I'm calm. I'm very calm right now. Guys that comment, they're like, you look sexy either way and things like that. And I'm like, okay, that didn't, what? Like, you didn't have to comment. You could have just left it. You could have just liked it and kept it moving, but whatever. Same kind of way that people talk to like mothers about snapping back from their baby weight. That really bothered me. It's something that just did not have the patience for it. And I will never have the patience for it. For anyone who's watching this, for anyone who goes on my Instagram, I am glad to have like civil conversations with people, but do not patronize me. Do not patronize women in general. Do not speak on things that you're not educated about. It's okay to just keep moving with your day or do more research before you talk about things. That's super fucking important.
It was such an eloquent read. I was like, yes.
I'm so glad. I was like, when I first said it and when he snapped back, I mean, it was very much so gaslighting. Like, I was like, oh shit, like, did I say something wrong? Like, was this too aggressive? And then I remember I screenshotted it and I sent it to my sister and she was like, what the fuck? Like, what is wrong with men? Like, this is ridiculous. And I hate to be that person. It's like, men are trash. But like, she was like, what the like, the audacity was just like ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, like all my friends started liking my comment. I was like, okay. And not that anyone needs the validation, but it was definitely like one of those moments where I was like, am I about to look like a really bad person? And I was like, okay, no, I was totally right. Like I should have just like stuck with my instinct. I shouldn't have doubted myself. It was definitely a learning moment.
When a celebrity comes out and they just so happen to be plus size, they get all of the questions about, oh, so how did you become so confident and learn to love your body and da-da-da. And it's like, I'm a singer or I'm an actor and I just came out to do.
I'm talented. Like
right. So like I remember you were Lizzo for Halloween, and she's another one who I'm like, she's out here and she's doing her rap singing and playing the flute and whatever, and every conversation revolves around her weight, and I'm like,
it's ridiculous. I love Lizzo so much. Like I legit get like emotional talking about her. So I went to her concert in September of last year with my sister, who was a new mom at the time, one of her friends who was also a new mom, and two of their other friends. Before we went to the concert, we were like running to Target or something, like me and Jesse, and we were listening to Lizzo's album. Both of us like realized like we were like trying to like look away from each other. We were both like sobbing, like sobbing. She's talking about like how much of an impact like Lizzo's had on us personally in our journeys, both just like for me, like through embracing like a bigger body, and like for her, like as a mother and a Black woman, obviously for both of us as Black women, but like having all this pressure and like also being someone who did deal with eating disorders in the past. Like she's like, I realized being there for my son is so much more important than what I look like. Having a bigger Black woman who's like so unapologetic because she knows she's so beautiful, and because she knows she's so powerful, and because she knows she's so fucking talented, she has all this confidence. It's not in spite of being a bigger Black woman, it's because she knows she is powerful, and people are genuinely scared of bigger women, but especially bigger Black women that are confident and like know themselves and don't feel put down by society. And it was just like such a powerful like moment between us crying and laughing and talking about all this stuff. Lizzo is genuinely a godsend. I wish she was famous when I was young, because I wouldn't have dealt with half the stuff that I dealt with.
When you do see celebrities like an Adele or
Rebel Wilson.
Yes.
So I could name so many, but it's just like, it's so frustrating. Comments be like, it is just so admirable how confident so-and-so is. And I'm like, you wouldn't be saying that about her if she wasn't a bigger girl. You need to think about why you're saying that and why she shouldn't be confident. She's a talented actress, dancer, whatever. But I think that it's really, really, really toxic in celebrity culture, especially with Adele right now. She just went through a really terrible divorce very publicly and lost all this weight, and she hasn't made a single comment about her weight. She has not said anything, but every single time she posts an Instagram picture where she's lost more weight or whatever, it's like, oh my God, Adele looks great, good for you, and like people are commenting all these things, and it's like, this has literally nothing to, like, she didn't say anything. She's saying happy birthday to Drake or just posting, it's crazy that it's like so hyper focused. Like for all women in the media, it's their image is obviously the first thing that people talk about in general, but especially for, I hate saying plus size because it's just like like they're just women, they're just normal fucking size women. Like the average American woman is a size 16. For curvier celebrities, it's so hard for them to be taken seriously, or if they're not actively like working on themselves or improving themselves, it's like they have all these negative stereotypes projected onto them. I know if you saw recently Rebel Wilson, she's been losing weight over the last like year or so, and she said in an interview it's because she wants to be taken seriously as an actress, and as a plus size woman she was always cast in these like type roles that were, you know, like the goofy, clumsy, dirty comedian girl, and she's like, you know, I am a talented actress, but I won't be taken seriously until I have like the look. That is just so heartbreaking. I grew up dancing for most of my life. I started dancing when I was like 3-4 years old. I did ballet, hip hop, and jazz, and I also took acting classes and did drama. And I quit ballet when I was 7 years old because I had an audition for the Washington Ballet, and the teacher told me at the end of my audition when I was 7 years old that I was too fat and I needed to lose weight and I would never make it as a ballerina. And so I walked out of there crying, and I told my mom, I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. This is terrible. And so I got into hip hop and jazz because it was normalized to have like a curvy, and again, curvy when I was 7 years old. It's just so toxic and just awful.
And that's what I was wondering with, I mean, with the Adele example, it's like, okay, yeah, she's losing all this weight, and although some folks are saying, yeah, this is great, like, maybe it's not so great. Like,
It's definitely not that I'm an expert or anything, but it's not healthy for someone to lose like almost 100 pounds in less than a year. It's just not. Like the body is not physically made to do that. So many people are like, oh yeah, like revenge body. And I hate that. I'm like, you have no idea what she's going through. Like, maybe it could be like, oh, I feel empowered or something after, but it could also be like, I'm deeply depressed, so I'm going to throw myself into this because this is the only thing I can focus on. You just never know. If we've learned nothing in the last month, it's that you never know what people are going through, especially with their health struggles and things like that. And it's just so sad to see. I think about it all the time as someone who is a micro influencer, and hopefully I'm trying to grow my audience. The criticism that celebrities go through is just absolutely brutal.
tell me about the swimsuit line with Jessie.
Okay. Literally, we were sitting at lunch one day. We were just complaining about not being able to find a plain black bikini that fits well. It's not too skimpy. It's not too conservative. It's well made, not too expensive, not too cheap. If it gets messed up, it's still like cheap enough to be replaceable. Just all these different factors. We were just sitting at lunch and literally we're like, what if we just did it ourselves? We started looking at different string bikinis that we liked. We started going through our own bikinis and seeing which ones we liked the most, what we liked about them, what we could change about them. We started buying samples of different people's bathing suits online, cutting them up, redoing them, figuring out exactly what we liked, sketching out our first bikini. We talked to my mom. We knew she had connections with a manufacturer in China that she had done like promotional t-shirts with and stuff. And she was like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure she can kind of do anything. So we got in contact with this woman. She was like absolutely amazing. The only issue with ordering from China is the MOQs are really, really high. So we had to order like 800 of each piece. We decided on what we wanted the bathing suit to look like. We sent them the design, the pattern, and everything. They sent a sample back. Then we like edited it, just took pictures and told her where we wanted different stitching or this or that, sent it back. And then we decided on the colors that we wanted. And it was actually really nice. The Waverly is the string bikini. We did black, and then we did that like dark, smoky, purpley gray that looks different in each light, and then the olive green. And so she like custom dyed all the fabric for us, which was awesome. And then it just kind of took off from there. We brought Kyle on to help on the like creative and tech side. He's a creative director, so he basically created the entire website, created the logo for us. Yeah. And then the name 10 Swim comes from like originally idea was to donate 10% of our profits to a charity, to a different charity each quarter. We weren't as profitable as we wanted to be, so that happened for like the first couple months, and we were like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. We're not making any money actually, but we do still donate some money to charities because we definitely wanted there to be that aspect to it. Very sacred heart of us. Our slogan is like simple, sophisticated, responsible. Simple, well-made swimwear for women of all ages that, you know, want to look sophisticated but still feel beautiful and sexy. And we've struggled with body issues. We want to feel good in our bathing suits because I think being in a bathing suit can be your most vulnerable moment. For me, it's always been, there's something really empowering about being in a bathing suit. I love, like, you can ask my roommate, I'm a very naked person. But like, I love being in a bathing suit because I feel like clothes can distort your body so much that messes with our minds. So when you're in a bathing suit or underwear or whatever, like that's like the most raw form of your body. And so I tell my friends, like, I'd rather be in a bathing suit than clothes any day. But that was definitely like one of our missions, to make people just feel comfortable and beautiful. All of our friends ranging from 00 to size 14, 16 try on these things from different sizes, ages, ethnicities, all the different things. We always wanted to expand to like more sizes, and we'll see what the future holds. We're just trying to be as inclusive and make people feel as good as possible about their bodies and not like break the bank while doing it.
On your Instagram, you share lots of posts in bikinis and everything. Is that a part of your body positive activism? Are you very intentional about specifically wearing bikinis?
I am. I think especially obviously during the summer, I think it's really important to show, like, I'm a size 10. I'm a 36 triple D. I have 46-inch hips. There's a lot going on here. And at least for me, it's important to show people that like you can wear a bikini at any size and look and feel beautiful and confident. And obviously owning a swimsuit brand, that's become more of a thing for me. But yeah, like I think that a lot of girls that are my size or even slightly smaller than me or feel really uncomfortable in bikinis. I think that's also because a lot of bikini designers don't design for people that are over a size 00. And I've gotten a lot of my friends who have never worn bikinis before or haven't worn bikinis since, you know, high school or middle school. They've started wearing bikinis again because of 10 Swim and because I put myself out there and because there's visibility for people that look like us.
Hi, Sports Illustrated. I'm Kenzie. I'm 23 years old and I'm an entrepreneur and body positivity activist based in New York City. And I was basically told every day by the images that I consume that in order to be beautiful and confident, you had to be skinny. I've now made it kind of my life's work to dispel that narrative.
And speaking of visibility, I know that you posted a video directed towards Sports Illustrated. What was that about?
I've always been a really big fan of Sports Illustrated, especially in the last couple of years. Obviously, when I was younger and had eating disorder issues, I was a fan because that's what I thought I wanted to look like. And I think that they always used like really skinny, perfect swimsuit models. But over the last few years, they've been so incredible with incorporating diverse bodies, people from diverse backgrounds. They had the first woman in a burkini, people like Ashley Graham and Tabria Majors and all these like beautiful full-bodied women are featured now. So they do like a Sports Illustrated swim search every year. It's usually in person. I've always wanted to do it, but always made excuses like, oh, I can't travel, I can't do this, whatever. And so now, obviously, this year with pandemic, they're doing it online. And so I just decided to go for it. It's a dream of mine. I would love, love, love to like be featured. So many of the women that have shot with them have their own companies now, have like a platform to speak on body issues. And so I think it's like a great jumping off point and also obviously just a huge, amazing opportunity in and of itself. I'm manifesting it. I'm going to be in the 2021 edition. Yeah, I just think it's such a great opportunity to like use my voice and my platform for good.
What is your favorite thing about your body?
Favorite thing about my body? I don't know. No, I do. I love my thighs and okay, this is really, really weird. I think my favorite thing is no matter how much weight I gain or lose, I always have like this little pouch like in my stomach. Like, I could literally be like completely at my skinniest. I always had this little pouch. I used to hate it so much, but I think it's like so cute and fun now. I know that sounds really weird, but my best friend in high school actually named it. So his name's Ricardo. My best friend. It's a joke. It's like a running joke in my family. Like everyone's like, "Oh, is Ricardo okay?" Like in a very like loving, like not in like me and my sisters like will like joke about because like all of us have like this little pouch and like it's so funny because again like we always felt so negative about it for years and like once I started embracing like my body and like I like my little stomach, like it's cute, it's fun, like it's something to grab onto. Like when I notice I'm starting to feel really insecure about a certain part of my body, I actually try to force myself to show that part of my body more. When I was younger, I would just try to cover up those parts if I was feeling bad about it, and I think that a lot of people that have eating disorders do, like it's like kind of like a immersion therapy thing for me. I'm like, nope, you have to show it because like if you show it and you'll realize that like no one cares, like no one else except for you cares. It's all in your head.
What would you say is your ultimate goal as an influencer?
The ultimate goal is to show that like you can be a multifaceted woman and inspire others to be multifaceted women. Just go after their passions and be fearless. Fear doesn't get you anywhere at all. That's like the greatest thing I've learned from my siblings, from my parents. I don't know if you know this, but I didn't finish college. It becomes an insecurity at different times in my life. But overall, I've been in the workforce for 5 years and like I'm pretty successful for my age. And I think it takes a lot of like stepping back and stepping outside of yourself to realize how far you've come. Like there's definitely been times where I was a hot ass mess and had no idea what I was doing. And I was scared that I was going to have to move home to DC and all these things. Your path can be whatever you want it to be. And if you have multiple passions like I do, you can pursue all of those things.
From the multifaceted McKenzie Barnes, ladies and gentlemen.
I try.
So is there anything I haven't asked you that you want people to know, or?
My number one advice, this is something that the assistant varsity field hockey coach told me when I was like a junior. You should get out of the shower every day and look at yourself naked and say out loud, "You're beautiful." Whether you believe it or not, especially on the days when you don't believe it. Look at your naked body and tell yourself you're beautiful. That was definitely like one of the most powerful things I've ever been told. So just want to pass it on to everyone.
Love it. Love it.